Hey everyone. Sometimes we'll hear people saying something like, men having more than one wife goes against the word of Elohim. But is this true? Let's find out. Shalom everybody and welcome to Beit Tefillah. Polygamy. Wikipedia defines it as, and I quote, polygamy is the practice of marrying multiple spouses. When a man is married to more than one wife at a time, sociologists call this polygamy. End quote. I've had many requests to do a video on this topic over the years, and this issue came to a head recently in a Facebook group that I'm a member of, so I thought I'd make a video addressing this topic today. But I need to say something before I even start with this video. I don't want people freaking out thinking that I'm agreeing with or promoting polygamy in any way. I'm not. I have just one wife, and it's her, and it's me, and I would have no interest in gaining another wife, even if it was legal and everybody else was doing it. However, that being said, it doesn't mean a flip what my personal opinion is on any matter. We are here to find out what the Word says, and it may not always prove out what we personally believe in regards to certain issues or topics. So I just wanted to make that clear. The issue today is about if men having more than one wife is against the Word or not. That's what we're going to examine. I just want to make that clear. Okay? So let's get into it. Let's read Genesis 2:22-24. And the rib which Yehovah Elohim had taken from the man he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman because she was taken out of man. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So this whole thing about a man and a woman becoming one flesh, I've seen where people refer to this and say, see, that means it's just one man and one woman. But that's not what this passage is saying. It means they become united as one, as in one unit, as they are now family. If I had an accident and if I was rushed to the emergency room, doesn't matter who else came in and wanted to see me. If they only wanted to let in one person, it wouldn't be my son, it wouldn't be my mom, it would be my wife. Because marriage is the closest union there can be between two people. And that's easily recognized today. And that word flesh comes from the Hebrew word basar. And that word was also used in this previous verse in Genesis 2:21. So Yehovah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of the ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. So that word flesh was also used to describe the living tissue that made up Adam. Let's also examine this from Genesis 29:13-14. And it came to be, when Laban heard the report about Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he told Laban all these matters, and Laban said to him, You are indeed my bone and my flesh. So did you hear that? Laban told his nephew Jacob, You are indeed my bone and my flesh. Let's compare that to Genesis 2:22-23. And the rib which Yehovah Elohim had taken from the man he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And the man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Well, in Eve's case, she actually was, from Adam's bone and his flesh. But Jacob was Laban's nephew, and he referred to him as the same. And Laban had many, many more relatives and other family members that he could also state were his bone and his flesh. So obviously this is talking about family. I just wanted to clear that up before we move forward. For another example of what some people will use as their scriptural proof against polygamy or multiple wives, I've seen where people quote the following verse in Deuteronomy 17:17. And he is not to increase wives for himself, lest his heart turn away. But let's read that verse in context for a clearer picture, because we can't proof text here. We've got to read it in context to understand what was being meant there. Deuteronomy 17:14-17. When you come into the land which Jehovah your Elohim is giving you, and shall possess it and shall dwell in it, and you shall say, Let me set a sovereign over me like all the Gentiles that are around me, you shall certainly set a sovereign over you, whom Yehovah your Elohim shall choose. Set a sovereign over you from among your brothers. You are not allowed to set a foreigner over you who is not your brother. Only he, the sovereign, is not to increase horses for himself, nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim to increase horses, for Yahweh has said to you, do not return that way again. And he is not to increase wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor is he to greatly increase silver and gold for himself. So is Elohim saying here that men should not increase horses for themselves or gather up more silver and gold and save it up? Of course not. That's not what Elohim is talking about here. What he is saying is the sovereign or the king that the people get over them, he shall not do these things. Why? Because he would get corrupted by the material things in this world and be influenced by them, and his heart turn away, instead of letting the word of Elohim guide him and help him rule Elohim's people in truth. Okay, so that was pretty easily dispelled as proof. So let's hear what Elohim has to say about the polygamy issue. Here in Exodus, we can read this command from Elohim in Exodus 21:10. If he takes another wife, her food, her covering, and her marriage rights are not to be diminished. So clearly, Elohim is making sure that another wife or a second wife would be cared and provided for just like the first wife. If there was a command against having more than one wife, then Elohim would not have added this commandment for if a man take another wife. Deuteronomy 21:15-17. When a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and they have borne him children, both the loved and the unloved, and the firstborn son of her who is unloved, then it shall be on that day that he makes his sons to inherit his possessions, he is not allowed to treat the son of the beloved wife as a firstborn in the face of the son of the unloved, who is truly the firstborn. But he is to acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. So here Elohim is making provisions for the children of an unloved wife of a man who has more than one wife. So whether the children born to him were from loved or unloved wives, the man is to treat the children equally and according to the laws of Torah, not according to the amount of love the man may have for the children's respective mothers. It is always balanced scales in equal measures with Elohim. Notice how Elohim mentioned in the beginning of this passage when a man has two wives. Elohim knew this would be an issue, that some men would take more than one wife, and why he made provisions in the Torah for it. And we know that King David had the heart of Elohim and was anointed to be king. King David had many wives, and let's hear just 4 verses from 2 Samuel and hear of the children David had and who gave birth to them while David was in Hebron. 2 Samuel 3:2-5. And sons were born to David in Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon by Ahinoam the Yisraelitess, and his second Kilab by Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, sovereign of Geshur, and the fourth Adoniah, son of Haggith, and the fifth Sheptiah, son of Abital, and the sixth Yithream by David's wife Eglah. 6 kids sired by righteous King David from 6 different women. Elohim didn't seem to take an issue with this. But when David took another man's wife, Bathsheba, who was the wife of Uriah the Hittite, David sinned by committing adultery. So Elohim took the life of that child as punishment. But after that, Bathsheba became yet another one of David's wives, and the first child that they had together was a son that became King Solomon. You know, sometimes people get ideas into their head and they run with them, claiming certain things go against the Torah, and in many cases the Torah definitely does not agree with their doctrines and may quite possibly even command the opposite. For example, I've heard some people say that shaving beards is against Torah. I did a video on that topic, and I will link to it below. Let's just get to the point here and say that shaving off a beard is in no way against Torah. As a matter of fact, Elohim commands it at different times. I've also seen where people push this whole vegetarianism thing, where they claim it's a sin to kill and eat an animal. This should be quite obviously false to anyone who has even bothered reading the Torah, but I made a video on that topic as well, and I will also link to that below. The point is, we can't be coming up with doctrines that clearly go against the word. Deuteronomy 4:2. Do not add to the word which I command you, and do not take away from it, so as to guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, which I am commanding you. We would all do well to remember that. Let's remember one huge fact. Elohim chose Jacob to rename Yisrael, and he is the patriarch of all 12 tribes of Yisrael. And this family of Yisrael came through Jacob and 4 different women. 2 were his wives and 2 were servant girls of his 2 wives. So I would think if Elohim was completely against polygamy, that he would have made Yisrael's patriarch a man with just 1 wife. The point of this video today is obviously this. We know that polygamy is illegal in our society today. But we live in a much different world than the Hebrews did thousands of years ago. Women were under the covering and protection of their fathers until they got married, then they were under the covering and protection of their husbands. Elohim was commanding the men to provide for the women in their care and not be partial to certain women or certain children from different wives. It was always about balance, fairness, and provision. Whatever our views and laws are on the issue of polygamy today is for the world we live in. Women of today can be independent, they can get jobs and provide for themselves quite easily. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened thousands of years ago, but we do know that it wasn't nearly as common as it is in today's world. So as we read about in the Tanakh today, Elohim made provisions for men if they had more than 1 wife. So no, polygamy is not a sin. It's not against the word of Elohim. Once again, I am not pro-polygamy and I am not encouraging it, okay? Polygamy is not a sin, but saying that it is adding to the word of Elohim, which is a sin. So we need to be careful. And I hope this video blessed you. I know it was kind of a strange topic, but it needed to be addressed. Because I've been seeing people on social media lately saying, polygamy is against the word of Elohim. Where? I don't recall reading one verse in Torah where Elohim said, thou shalt not have more than 1 wife. If he made provisions for it, then it's not forbidden. Idolatry is completely forbidden, and he didn't make any provisions for that, saying, well, if you're going to be in idolatry, make sure you just don't worship anymore than those other gods, just these right here. No, nothing like that. So if he made provisions for it, it's not forbidden. Okay? That's polygamy. So it may not be accepted in today's society, and it may be illegal, and personally it's not for me, but my opinion doesn't matter. What the word says is what matters. Okay? So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for being a part of Beit Tefillah, and shalom to all who are my brothers and sisters scattered worldwide in the dispersion. Everybody be blessed, and have a wonderful day.